So today's class is going to be TestNG mainly focused, and we're going to try to cover TestNG, and then starting from the next class after the homework. So it's going to be another topic, which is Cucumber, and after that we will do GitHub. Once we get to GitHub, and again, don't expect that all of the topics are done. We're just lightly touching those topics, and as soon as you get the GitHub training, then we're going to go more and more and more deeper, is because now we can not only write code, but we can also push and pull code from GitHub. And I would like to do that sooner than later, so that way when you join a company, you don't have to worry, oh, how am I going to submit my work? Somehow you're able to do the work, now you don't know how to submit it, right? So that's something that we need to make sure that we are very solid in. All right, so TestNG, and then we have JUnit, right? So TestNG provides a way to, and I'm going to write some bullet points here. What does it helps with? TestNG is like a framework, right? It allows you to organize your test, and then it gives you a HTML report, and not only HTML, you can get JUnit report as well. You can also get a JSON report, and I'll tell you why that is important. You may say, okay, this JUnit comes in XML, and JSON is basically coming in keyword and values, but you may say, okay, why do we even need this? We're getting HTML, which looks good, right? This is more visual. We'll talk about this also. And the way that we can organize tests is because TestNG allows us to group our test using tag names. It can also group non-test related code into a group. So you can separate out the line of code that is not test related, but this is setup related. For example, one line of code just to open the driver, right? That may not be your test, right? Opening a driver is not your test. Going to the website and checking the links is your test, right? So then opening the driver could be separated from the test itself. So you can actually tell TestNG, okay, this is my test. And everything else that you have before, it's just part of this step, all right? So you can isolate, you can actually make your test look much better, because now you're able to just go ahead and organize in this way. But most importantly, TestNG, at least in my view, we used because of the HTML report. Currently with this framework, your manager says, send me a report, what are you gonna do? You ran it, and it probably came here somewhere, right? So you run this, I'm gonna go and run it right there. All right, and then once it opens up and runs, okay, let's wait until then. But where is the report? Are you gonna go and sit down on Excel and write the report, or do you want an automated report? So when you are an automation engineer and you have to write manual report, that doesn't look good, right? So now TestNG is a Java library. JUnit is a Java library, right? How did we get other Java libraries? Who can answer this question here? To our framework. We have a framework, it's called Lighter.
From the repository, Maven.
Maven repository, correct?
Repository, yes.
Maven repo. Okay, so Maven repository, you go in there, and why do we even get it from Maven repository? And what is Maven? Let's just do some memory check, right? What is Maven? Who can answer this question? Come on, guys. Somebody save us. Nobody remembers what Maven is. Do you guys want me to explain, or?
Yes, please. We know a little bit, but if you explain, it will be clear.
All right. Okay, so when you have Maven repository, right? So think about Maven is a tool that will say, hey, what do you need? You just give me the name and the version, and I will install it for you, right? and it knows where to install from because Maven has a repository. So everything that is developers out there creating, which is helpful, and they make a library because now they think that this library can be helpful to somebody else. They put it in Maven repository right here because whoever's going to use Maven, they can come here and then say, okay, I want to use this because this is what's going to help me for my project. For our project, we need TestNG, and we did that. We have Selenium already. Okay, I got to use another because they don't allow automation browsers to look for something. So we got to go into Maven from there. If you try to automate Maven as a, and this is kind of ironic. So if you try to automate this website, you can't. And the reason is because everybody tried to automate Maven application when they try to learn, and these guys are paying for the servers, and you're kind of putting that extra stress for no good reason into that server, and they're paying more money. All right, so that's why they decided to disable for people to automate this application. All right, so now if we need TestNG, we search it here and we can see TestNG is available, right? We need Cucumber for some reason. So let's say, and then now we have Cucumber JVMs. So Maven is a dependency management tool, anything that you need for your project. So this is our project, right? Our project name is Light Auto Test. The purpose of this project is to be able to automate websites. The website that we were currently working on is JetBlue. So now we wrote this framework, we wrote some tests, and all of a sudden I realized that my framework could be a little bit more organized. Okay, I just feel like my framework is all over the place. I feel like the code is all over the place. I can make a little bit more organized test, and then I also need a report showed to my manager. So I did my research, and I feel like TestNG will be the right library I can add it to my existing framework, and which will allow me to write tests in an organized manner, and it will give me a report, right? So now I found my TestNG and I want to add it to my current framework. What do I do? What is the first thing that I can do here?
You look for
You
the,
select. Sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Select.
No,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, you select the highest downloaded one or highest, which one is
this one?
most people are
Yeah,
using.
maybe how highest usage, it'll make sense,
Yeah,
because if
highest
they're
usage.
using it so much, that means this might have less bug. All of these because these are open source libraries and they put new versions all the time. It might not be fully tested, right? So that's when you say, okay, you know what, this 1.583 seems like a good deal. I'll click on it. And at this point you have Maven right there. You don't want to choose Gradle. You don't want to choose other build management tool. You want to choose Maven as your build management tool. As soon as you click on it, it's auto copied, because that's why, you know, they just trying to make your life a little bit easier. So then you go to pom.xml. If I had to recognize if my project, Light Auto Test, if my project is a Maven project or is anything else, how do I know this? How do I know if my project is a Maven project? What is one way for me to find out if my project is Maven? The easiest way.
XML file.
Exactly. So the XML file has to be there, because the only way Maven knows that what you want to install into your libraries is by you basically give them dependency. So you tell them exactly how you want. So we put it inside of dependencies, and then there's dependencies. So I'm going to go ahead and paste it here. As soon as I put the TestNG thread, normal thing, and then I see an icon right here. So this is in a way IntelliJ try to help you. But for some reason, this icon doesn't show up, or you miss the icon, you can always click on this hammer. Okay, so I'm going to click on the icon, and it should automatically install TestNG into this library, the list of libraries. Okay. All right, so seems like it already installed it. The next thing that I need to do is that I need to create a Maven class. Okay, so Maven class is different than a regular Java class. Okay, so now I have to. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
No problem.
So-
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I was.
So you are downloading TestNG, then,
Mhm.
and we are creating Maven class. I'm kind of confused. Sorry.
Okay. So, all right, make it easy for you. So I want to download TestNG, but then I need a manager, somebody who's going to say, I will hold this for you. I will remember what it is and I'll give you whenever you need it. Okay. Maven is that manager who's going to say that, okay, you want TestNG and I will install it to your library, external library right here, so you can use them. The reason why we want to install this in here is because so that way we can use the methods, some of the helper that this one has. Now, if you didn't have Maven and you didn't have Founder.xml, then you would have to install one at a time. Look how many libraries you'll have to install one at a time. Okay, you would have to install like what, 11, I think 11 of this right here. Aside from JDK, JDK would come by itself, but then you would have to go and manually find this. So how do you find them manually? You'll have to go in here. You don't want to go to Maven, so you want to find jar file. So you say TestNG jar file. And now you go to TestNG. And then what you do is that you have to download somewhere. There's going to be download link somewhere. 1 second.
No, my question is,
Selenium.
TestNG is also like a tool like Maven. Is it like a tool, TestNG, for the say
No,
like
we'll cover that because TestNG, remember we talked about it. Oh, hold on a second. TestNG to organize our test, to get a report after we run the test, and then we want to group our tests using tag name. Because what if I want to run only 2 tests? What if I want to run only 5 tests? What if I want to run only like 20 tests and I have 3,000 tests? Okay, I don't want to run the whole 3,000. I would like to be able to specify in a different groups, so I can run at will whenever I'm going to run a specific group. So smoke being one group, smoke test, regression being another group, right? So this allows that. Otherwise, with this framework, you would be creating a new class and put all the tests appropriate for smoke, so that way you can just run that entire class. The only way you can run tests here is that just the class itself, not the test, okay? And that, yeah, that is just a limitation that you have here with this framework. So we're going to remove that limitation. We're going to also be able to get the report. We're going to be able to organize our test, make it a little bit better. Okay.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
No problem. So now, in order to get TestNG class, I need to do 2 things, right? I need to also have my IDE kind of. So notice like how if I click on here, right? Let's say right click, new, and it gives me a class. Okay, it says, okay, go ahead and create a class. But I want somewhere here to say create a TestNG class. Okay, so how do I do this? If I go into IntelliJ and I look for a plugin that will understand that my framework now has TestNG, I need to go into the plugin right there. And I need to download TestNG if I can, hopefully if they have that. Create TestNG XML. Okay. How is this installed? I didn't even install it. Okay. That's fine. All right. So then if I right click, I should be able to see the TestNG somewhere here. Now with IntelliJ, with Eclipse, you would be able to see it right away. Because Eclipse favors that, Eclipse understands that better. But we have to configure this in a second. Let me see. And even if we don't configure that, we can actually write it out ourselves. Okay, let's see the structure actually. All right, so we can write our own TestNG class at this point, okay? That's what we're gonna do right now. So go ahead and write a new one, and I'm gonna give it a name, and I'm gonna put as a TestNG class, okay? So I'm gonna say TestNG. First TestNG test, right? Let's say. And this is just to showcase. That's okay. So you have your main class, and here we're not gonna write the main method. In the TestNG class, we don't have to write the main method. Okay. We will basically just go ahead and use the method that is provided by the TestNG itself. Hold on, I'm gonna see if I can get that because this is gonna be hard for even template. Okay, let me see TestNG. Okay, TestNG in IntelliJ. Let's see what I have to do to get this IntelliJ. So anything that I have to do that I don't know, I will go ahead and read. So right here, it says open powder.xml in the root. Okay, I did that and I added this. Fine. Create test and test suite in project. Okay, so it's really like create a new class and that's it. It doesn't really it doesn't really give us a way to it doesn't really give us a way to do the TestNG class, but we have to create it ourselves, which is fine. So this is the template that is giving us as a sample, but I will give you guys everything that we need at this point. So the first thing in TestNG is that remember the group by. So we don't even need public void main and everything. So the first one is test, okay? And notice the TestNG annotation right there. This is the guy, okay? So this is your TestNG annotation. You can say public void, sorry, public, and it has to be public class actually. And then 1 second. This is that, and then we got the object public. Yeah, it has to be public void. Okay. And then give your test a name, right? So you have to. So in here you can actually provide your test a name, right? And you can say, for example, verify, and this is the conventional method. Verify home. Let's see. Page of whatever, right? Any website that you're testing. So you can say verify homepage of delta.com, whatever. Delta, and you did that. And okay, so this is your first test. Notice how there is a play button right there. And but how does it know that it, remember, like we said in Java, anytime whatsoever, if you want to run any code and compile, it needs to be inside of the main method. How come I don't have a main method here? Is because TestNG at test, okay? It basically knows what to do with it, okay? It does, TestNG took care of it for you. Just know that in behind the scenes. Now, if I want to see if it works, right? So I'm going to go ahead and write some system out.println just to see if it works perfectly first. Running test ng test, right? Okay. 1, 2, 3, and then go ahead and run this, run verify homepage, and I want to see if that works, and boom. So notice, like right off the bat, it's a nicer, right? It's a nicer view. You're able to see that how many tests passed and failed. So this one passed, didn't fail, right? What's there to fail? Nothing. It's just printing something, right? But so far we just started like maybe the first line, and you already probably like the way the test is coming up, right? Yes, agree?
Yes.
Okay. So now, since we already have reusable objects, why not use them? Okay, why not use one of these? Why not use this object? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull those objects the same way in TestNG also, right? So go ahead and just go ahead and click my object and then the driver. First TestNG. Okay, so I'm gonna put it outside. And for a reason, right? Because then we can have our driver outside. And we can go ahead and call it to all of the test cases because now we have multiple test cases that we have to call in. So I'm just gonna leave it aside right there and then that, right? So we have the driver ready to go. So now if I tell driver to do something, driver, okay, and notice like how it recognizes the driver, it usage 1. And it's because why? Because it is outside. Now, what if I want to have a second test? I'm gonna create another test, okay? This is my second test. I just have to say, instead of Delta, this time I'm gonna say JetBlue. Okay, so now I have 2 different tests. Both have access to the driver because that is outside. This is outside of these 2 containers. This is the start and this is the end of the container, right? Okay, so driver.get, in this case, let's just go ahead and simply do something like this. So 1 for Delta, 1 for JetBlue, and then we will, okay, and then all right, we are missing too many things. And then we don't need it here. We put URL. All right, so simply it's gonna visit, but again, this is to show you guys multiple tests and how it turns out. At this point, what I will do is that I'll just put the URL. So let me just go ahead and find the URL. I don't like to just write it up because this URL copying is much better than pasting, especially URL. Everything else you can type, but copying is better because URL may be different depending on the company. So, all right. So we got ourselves 2 tests. All we're doing is going there, and then we're going to do a simple assertion, maybe, right? So that way, assert. Notice we have JUnit and TestNG both have assert. So at this point, I can totally disregard JUnit and remove it because TestNG also have assert for me to use. Okay. But can I use JUnit assertion? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. It's not a problem. You have multiple libraries, you have access to multiple tools. What you use, it's up to you. So the first one we'll use JUnit dot, and then again assert equal. And then we got the expected title and then actual title. So for Delta, I'm gonna say string expected title is equal to something, I don't know. And actual title is gonna be string actual title is equal to driver dot get title, right? We got these 2, and I gotta do the same thing for this one. So all I have to do, notice like these are the exact same name for the variable, but how come they're not red? Why are they allowing me to use the same name? Any idea? And I'll let you find out on that. But in the meantime, I'll complete this expected versus actual. That is my assertion.
I'm not sure, but I think you wrote a string URL for both of them.
Okay.
It has to be URL like 1 or 2 like that. That's for the second one.
But I don't see any
Because-
problem. How come it's not telling me that I did anything wrong?
I think it's recognizing as the same thing, like a URL is a variable name.
No, but anytime you have duplicate
Okay.
variable, it should give me like, no, there is a reason why it's not giving me red, but that was the question, that
Is it
if I'm permitted,
Because of
if I'm
multiple
allowed to use
testers.
this. Yeah, of course, it's multiple. This is
Is
so
it
when
static?
you in testing, it's kind of like static if you want to say that, but think about this way, right? You have a method, right? So in TestNG, we will create methods like this, right? This method is actually a test. The name of the method is actually name of the test. So this method has this information, this code. This guy is another new method, and this guy do not have access to this information unless you put it outside. Okay, so now if I want URL to be accessible by both of them, then I will put it outside as a instance variable. So there is a difference. And I'll probably explain that to you guys in a bit. Okay, so now I have to find out delta actual title when it goes into the page. So I can have my test passing, right? Okay, I gotta go find the title somewhere. Iframe title is right there. Okay, so you copy exactly how it is. Don't change anything. Otherwise, it's not gonna work. The next one is JetBlue. So JetBlue, we leave it like something wrong in purpose, so that way we can see this is going to fail, right? So this is just the wrong one. So that way we can kind of see the difference between these two. So you can simply say, okay, your test is always passing, right? How do we know that? So now if you want to run only single test in TestNG, you just click on this. Okay, you just click on this. Or if you want to run the all of the tests at the same time, you just click on this guy right there. And then later I'll show you how to run tests from multiple classes, not just a single class. Okay, one is done. Okay, running TestNG. Okay, so we got the total test, 2 tests run, pass 1 and fail 1. Isn't it nice in terms of what you see right now versus what you used to see?
Yeah, that's nicer.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay, good.
it's
So
nice.
that's
Nice.
yeah, that's the power of framework, right? That's why we add many things in order to make our life more easier. All right, so now that you have this, right, and you can see like clearly telling you expected was this, but I found this. Okay, it found this instead of this. Okay, and it's so clear, right, in terms of the messaging. So you don't have to like look through your message and like not understand and spend half an hour on understanding what's really happening. So that's another good way to, another reason why you want TestNG instead of plain Selenium. Selenium by itself is not that pleasant, by the way. Okay, so now that we added this, debug the, okay, what is that? Okay, so now this one, basically what happened here, why is it red? Or why is it dotted yellow is because when you ran your test, your IDE has memory and it recognized that it failed this guy right here. And it failed exactly at 31. If I just run it again, it will remove that memory, right? So IDE is trying to help. Anybody here who loves Eclipse? I don't think Eclipse has this feature. Okay, so anything helps when you start fresh, your first time writing code, anything will help, and IntelliJ is always there. So at this point, you got 2 tests running and 2 passed. So even if you don't have a result and report, you can just go ahead and take this. You can just copy this and send it over to your manager, right? Easy, right? But then do you want a better report? Do you want to, that's the whole reason why we, troubled ourselves to get this library, and now we're writing our tests in a way that it makes more sense, right? Okay, so now we go ahead and go into a specific folder, because this is a TestNG now, your framework, and you wrote a TestNG class. Now you will have a target folder, okay? In the target folder, there's 2 folders, okay? And you have to look into those. Okay, let me see. Boom, that's that. First test, no, not that. Where is the result folder? 1 second. Okay, I gotta probably refresh this, okay? Let's see if I can refresh somewhere, reload from all disk, okay. Okay, so if I did that, I'm just gonna start and open it again. And just trying to see where my folder go, because what TestNG does, it creates a new folder and it's called target, and then it gives us where is it? Where is our report? Okay, it should be automatic, right? We don't have to create anything, but okay, so I'll look into that in a second, because the report was the main reason why we even here. But with this framework, now you can differentiate between annotation right? So now let's say you have a test, like for example, this, okay? And then you wanna, both of the tests has something in common. Just look at it, right? Both
I
of the
have a
tests has
question.
something. Mhm, mhm.
What is this for the prod CSV file?
Where? Right there, prod
Under
CSV,
yeah.
Google username. Now this is something that we created, I think, last class as an example for putting your data, right? So we'll do that in some point. Yeah, I'll remove this for now. This is not the topic for today. So this is basically you want to remove the test data and put it somewhere else, okay? So that way it's easier for you to pull and push test data for your test, okay? So now that you see you have multiple tests, okay? So far, all the tests that we wrote, I'm going to bring it here and see how it looks like. But first, what I want to do, I want to take things that are common and put it into a different tag, okay? So in TestNG, we use it because of the tag. We use it because also for the report, which we are about to see soon. So the first thing that I wanna do is remove anything common. What is common into both tests? You guys give me an answer. What do you see that is common in both tests, right?
Yeah, printing method.
Verify.
Yeah, so printing this one is kind of like common, right? After that, everything else is kind of different. And then these should be belonging to both. So what I'm going to do, I'm gonna basically put it into another method, right? So now look at the different annotation, okay? So I'm gonna say add before. So before test comes from JUnit, but we don't want to use JUnit. We want to use TestNG. So TestNG is right here. So remember, we didn't remove JUnit from our framework is because we wanted to compare and contrast. So JUnit has before, does the similar work, which is TestNG. So if you have to say what do you like better, you would have to say TestNG because it's more readable. It gives you better sense what that does actually. So public void, and I want to say setup. Okay, for example. Okay, setup means we take this, put it right there, and then we no longer need this. So this line, this will run for both tests. Sorry, this before test will run once before this test, just once. Okay, that means both tests will run one after another, and it will be fine. If I do before method, because these guys are method right here, this is a method, it will run once before each test, okay? So now what I will do, so running TestNG test, before when we ran it, we saw how many times? Twice, right? So if I run it now, it should show once, unless, I mean, I'm mistaken. Let me just go ahead and pull up the TestNG annotation because I don't use TestNG, to be honest, at work. And I'll tell you why. And that's why we're gonna spend less time. Annotation. Okay, so TestNG annotation and go to the list. Okay, so before suite, so this is the order in which the TestNG annotation works. And as you can see, running the TestNG, it just ran once now, right? Only once because we put it before. So what if I did before method? TestNG annotation, and I have to import this, import class. Now I'm gonna run it. Let's do it again. And we have to run this as TestNG, not as Java, right? And that's why it didn't generate the report. So we'll have to look into that. But notice how it is printing twice this one right here, because this method will execute before each method. These are methods, okay? Even though this is a test, but you will be able to name them in a way that it makes sense. So each method. So let's see if we can get our report soon. And I will have to see how do we run this in run. Okay, so run, I gotta go into run configuration actually. Let's see, edit configuration. And it did run as TestNG all this time. So if that is the case, if this ran as TestNG, I would like to, okay, I gotta do a small research here. Report generate TestNG IntelliJ. IntelliJ report generation. Okay, so I will just want to see what it is because with Eclipse, it just does it automatically. So how come it doesn't do it here? So answer is we have to click on TestNG and then we have to click on configuration suite. We have to find the TestNG XML. So we have to add TestNG XML for the report. Ah, okay. So let's see if we have it. We don't have TestNG XML. Okay, so that's the problem. Configuration. We have to go into. Okay, so let's get the TestNG XML, but first. Okay, let's see. Check on use default reporter option in which will create TestNG output folder in your root project. Okay. 49 people got benefited from this answer. So they passed it, so that's good. Okay. That you check the box under listener. And this checkbox enable automation report. Very good. Okay. So we click on the listener. Listener plus, let's see if I can find TestNG reporter. Oh, wow. Okay. So I got the TestNG reporter, apply, click OK. And go ahead and run it now. Run the first TestNG and let's go ahead and see it. It's better with the report. All right, let's see. Okay, so now I have to refresh this. Reload from disk. It should be like an output folder. Okay, there we go. That's output right there. Okay. Now that we just learned, and honestly, with the TestNG, the way that this is happening, the setup is always changes because it may not be same in like next 2 years, right? Because based on the way the developer will want this to be, right? So if they said, okay, we want this by, maybe the IntelliJ will be nice enough to add this directly instead of us adding it. But everybody saw it and look through the video on how to do it. But everything as an automation engineer, if you get hang up, don't just quit. Always Google and you'll find the answer.
How
Okay.
do you open the listener?
How did I find the listener?
Yeah, how did you find the listener?
Okay, right here.
No, here in the
Under listener,
Yeah.
checkbox, right? Checkbox
Yeah, no,
enable automation report.
in IntelliJ. How did you
Oh,
find the
IntelliJ.
listener?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
IntelliJ.
So you're running it. You click on the run. Okay. You got to go to
Yes.
edit configuration. So you want to have a run configuration. You'll see TestNG is already there. And since you're running the full report, you click on this guy, and then you click on listener, and then you have to click on plus and look for your TestNG report. Okay. So now I will go ahead and open this. I'm going to open it into a browser. Okay. Maybe Chrome. And then this is what you see as the report. Okay, light automation test. It's tell you verify homepage. Time, it took 2 seconds. Verify homepage of JetBlue, 3 seconds. And it passed. And anybody has any comment about this report? You like it, you don't like it?
Yeah, this is nice.
I like
Nice,
it.
okay. Okay, so then if you see the next framework that we're going to do, you see that if you're going to see that report, then you're never going to want to come back to this. Okay, but it's good to start from, scratch, from the worst to the best, so that way you see the difference. But yes, this is acceptable. This is an acceptable report if you work in a company who has this framework. Okay, so if you join a company and they already have this framework, you have nothing to do, right? You can't really go ahead and enhance it. This is built-in report. You can't do much. Okay, but yes, there are ways to make the report even more colorful and better. You have to add those custom changes. Okay, so we're not going to do customization here today. This report can be customized a little bit, but again, it has everything that you need. You can include group and you can exclude group. So that's what we're going to be also doing when we run our tests, but let's look into it a little bit in more depth. So now that we got the report, 2 reasons why we're using TestNG, right? We got the HTML report. We can also get the other reports if we want. We have to enable those. Okay, just the same location. We have to go and enable those. Then we can group our tests. We already talked about the tag, so let's go into that. And again, let's go into the TestNG test. Okay. Now, after each test, if you have to close, right? If you have to close your driver after each test, okay? I don't want to rewrite again and again. I don't want to write that at the end again and again and again. I want to write once and you should do it automatically for after each test. So shouldn't I do something like this after? Do I do after each test or do I do after each method, right? So if I do after test, okay, what this will do, it will at the end after running both, then it will close the driver, okay, which is probably nicer than just closing it first and then opening it again and then closing it first and opening it again, right? So it's better we use after test, and then I'm going to say public void, no return, right? Void close driver. I'm just giving a relative name. I'm going to say driver dot close driver dot quit, because at the end it's already done, right? We know for a fact that the test is done. We no longer need this. So I'm going to do both. Quit will close the driver, even if there's any other browsers, it will go ahead and quit. Okay, so by now, do you guys have a little bit of idea why these annotations are super helpful? Any idea? Notice you got 2 tests and you have test tag because this is an actual test before test method. So look at the report real quick. It doesn't even talk about the before method. It doesn't even say pass or fail. It only talks about the test. Okay, so that's a good thing or bad thing? Okay, I'm going to run this, but somebody tell me if this is a good thing or bad thing.
Can we be wrong if our answer is wrong? I don't
Yeah,
think
of
it's
course.
a good thing.
You don't think it's a good thing because it doesn't show the report doesn't show the non-test related code result. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but I could be wrong.
Okay, so if you're a manager and this report is for you, do you even care about how you even create the driver? Do you even care about this? Right, you don't. Right, this method is just for setting up. So now the driver, for example, I want to create the driver, copy this guy, and before everything, I want to create a driver. And I'm going to make this into an instant variable so everybody have this. So now this driver is here. So now before before the test, it creates the driver. Okay. The manager doesn't care about this, right? They don't care if the driver opens or not opens. But also you want to show him the test only. So non-test related items or steps, we keep it out of the test. We try to keep things that is related to these specific tests. If I say I want to verify homepage, then I want to verify homepage. I don't want to go into like open driver, do this, check page title, blah, 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 all of this stuff. I don't want to do that. And that's why we got the before test. After test is that I want to, after all of the tests finish running, I don't want to close the browser every time a test finish. I want to close after all of the tests is done. Then you have this method for this specific class. And now there are other tags also that we can talk about. So let me just go and run this real quick to make sure it's still passing. So the answer is, it's a good thing that it doesn't show unnecessary steps. All right, as a manager, I only care about my test. You wrote the test, it's working, that's it. That's all I care about. Okay,
You
so
didn't put
now,
you didn't put the question as a manager. I thought you were talking about as a QA engineer.
no,
and
no,
that's-
as a yeah, as a Q engineer, you have it here because now you can use this console to see some things, right? It's even nice enough to just give you a summary report, like, okay, here is it. And you have 2 tests and 2 paths, right? Now it knows exactly how many tests you have compared to, okay, let me give you perspective, maybe better, right? So spend 2 seconds to look into this test. You got 1 test, you got 2 tests. These and this, just this one is a setup, and this is like after. This is like a tear down. At the end, you're just closing the browser. Now we go back to this. Okay, what is the initial feeling right away? Do you
crowded.
feel like, huh?
Crowded.
Crowded, and it's like, it's so messy. It's like, oh, I have to think about this public void static main and all this. You know, it's just, this gives a different sense here, right? You have to include this on every single class that you're running your testing. Okay. So with this, TestNG is underneath taking care of it. The public void static main, all that things is part of the TestNG code. So we don't even have to worry about that. All we have to do is that, how do we use this tag? Okay. So now the list of tags, let's look at a list of how many tags is out there. Okay. So now we have to, okay. So TestNG versus JUnit. Okay. So now we do a compare and contrast, but we want to also look at the list of, let's see which guys have the better one. Okay, Guru 99 usually is good. Okay. So notice the TestNG report. This is how it used to be when they initially wrote this article. And you see, this is how it used to be, and now they have different. Okay, so let me go into, I just want to compare what they're giving me, the whole test. Okay. All right, and this is also how it used to be, more colorful. Okay, so now that, let's go into, I did do versus, right? TestNG, oh, never mind, okay. TestNG versus JUnit. Okay, there we go. So TestNG versus JUnit, even TestNG 4, which is the updated version, what are the difference in terms of writing this test? With JUnit, you have the annotation, yes, just like TestNG. So you can write your test the way that we just wrote here. The test suite, everything is fine except for dependency test. Okay, it's not there, and also the annotation. If you see, the test annotation is same, JUnit and TestNG. Before class is same. Okay, after class is also same because JUnit later updated this. Okay, and then before method is not the same, it's before. So I don't know what is before means, right? So it could be a little bit of confusion there if you're using it for the first time. So the point here is that TestNG is more readable, easy to understand annotation versus JUnit. Then we have TestNG, test can take parameter. Okay, in order to, so if you want to ignore a test, you don't want to run it. In JUnit, you have to say ignore, @ignore, and it will not run that test. In TestNG, you basically say this is still a test, but I want to do enable is equal to false, which is better, right? But if you want to just go ahead and turn it up at some point, you can go ahead and switch this to true programmatically if you need to. So it gives you a little bit more flexibility if you want to write complex test logics. So this is still not bad. It still give you the same annotation to ignore a test. Okay. Then you have annotation for exception. What if something happens in your test and it doesn't go the way that you want it? TestNG will give you expected exception. And then also JUnit gives you the very similar, but like I think TestNG does a little bit better in terms of displaying the test failure. Okay. And then we have the timeout. For test, you can increase timeout. So sometime by default, TestNG or any test that you will use or any test framework you use, it'll be 30 seconds by default at max, sometimes 10 seconds, meaning if nothing happens in the 30 seconds, the test will fail and tell you it timed out. Okay. For some of the tests that you will be writing in the future, you need 2 minutes, you need 3 minutes because your application is slow or because your application takes some time to do some processing. In that case, you can increase your timeout, right? So both TestNG and JUnit has it, okay? And now you can see some of the disadvantages of JUnit. Before Suite, TestNG has it, but JUnit do not have. After Suite, TestNG has it, but JUnit do not have. Suite means if you want to run 20 test cases, comes from 20 different, maybe 20 different class, right? You have a lot of tests you're running. Then JUnit becomes a little bit more challenging to work with. If you have 10 test cases, then you're fine. Okay, if you have 200 test cases, then maybe you want to use TestNG. Then you have before test and after test. Before test is basically very useful compared to JUnit do not even have it, right? I want to specifically one of my class, I'm going to run something very in the beginning and at the end. Then these two are very helpful. And then you have before group and after group. So if you group your test with a specific tag, you can actually have a custom tag and you can group them. And then you can run that specific group separately, right? Execute before that. You can basically have execute before a specific group. So for example, you have test that is for, let's say, New York users, they see a specific message. So you can group your test as New York user, and you can say all of these tests that belongs to New York users, do this before running that test. Okay, and then do this after running that test. It's easier than writing the same line of code over and over and copy and pasting for the same test. Okay, so just make sure, not a huge difference, but TestNG, remember, we're getting the HTML report that JUnit do not have. Okay. And that is probably one of the disadvantages. But again, in our case, we have both. Does it hurt to have both? No, it doesn't. You can use TestNG and JUnit at will. You can switch between them if you want to. But if you started a class as a TestNG, then that's what you want to stick to, because your configuration, run configuration was done for TestNG. So it will not work. The report is not going to work. Okay. So any question in terms of the annotation, guys? You guys understand when to use these guys? Like right here, again, when you use TestNG, this is simply for tests, and then like description is always on the left side for these annotations, but it is readable. That's why I like TestNG more, because after class, I know after class means that if this is my class right here, that means after everything in the class finish, then it will run. So now I'll give you guys a challenge. Okay, so notice it says before test. I'm going to copy this. Okay, you know what? I'm going to remove this from here, and I'm going to go ahead and put it all the way in the bottom. Okay, before and after, because I don't like putting it in there. So let's say, and I'm going to say all that test, all non-test real steps below, something like this. I don't know. You can always make it more easy to read. Now, quiz, a small question for you guys. At this point, what will happen? What will run first? Do you think it will run this one first, then this one second, this one third, and this one fourth? Or do you think it will run this one? Okay, this one first, then it will run this one, and then it will run this one, and then it will run this one again, and then it will run this one. and then it will run this one, right? Confusing, right? So, but go ahead and tell me if you, what do you understand from this? I remove the code from the top and only the tests are floating up.
I think the before test will run first. Then I'll go to the test, then the after
Mhm.
test, and again go back to the before test. So it's going to be like a loop. Just guessing.
But remember what the after and before test does. It only runs once before all of these. It could, you could have 3 tests and it'll run once for the test type. Okay.
Yeah, is a before test, then after test. This is done because diver is closed.
That's it, right?
Yeah, because
Okay,
after test
let's
is
go
the
ahead and
diver is
see
gonna
it.
be closed.
Yeah.
Oh
let's see
yeah,
it.
there is a quit, a driver quit.
So
Yeah.
all the tests is gonna run in between the before test and the after test.
Right. And why do you think that is the case? Because like the way that I put my test, the orders only matters if you write a plain Java class. So for example, here, if you did the same thing and you put it, you know, if you, it has to be the order in which it's going to run. Okay. This line obviously will run after this one. It's not going to jump back and forth, but TestNG will basically give you the annotation that will have a order of execution. It's called order of execution. So let me just go and find this TestNG order of execution so that way we can see when. Okay, let's see, order of execution list. Maybe orders, priority orders. Okay, maybe this one. Okay, let's see. Trying to find this website that shows the exact order in which, I think this is the exact order. Okay. So what I mean is that you see before suite will run before the test. Okay. After suite will run after the entire suite. Okay. But that means okay, this is not in order. I can just tell by reading the second one. So let me find the order execution process. Okay, let's see. Okay, we may probably like copy the whole thing. It'll be helpful to see when and how they get. So I'm going to copy this whole thing. I'm going to create a new class here, and I'm going to get this whole thing, and I want to see what's the TestNG annotation. So we're going to create a new class to learn the annotation. Okay, so new Java class TestNG annotation. Here, all we have to do is copy the whole thing, and we should be good to go. Okay, so now, okay, what's this? Okay, that's fine. We did that. Okay, so now if I run this TestNG annotation, the whole class, right? We have test case 1, test case 2, test case 3, and all this stuff, right? And the way that it was named, we can see that is the same one for the tag name. So this is just to see in order in which it runs, right? So go ahead, let's go ahead and run the whole TestNG annotation just to see the order of execution. The first one it ran is before suite. Okay, then it ran the second one, it ran before test, then before class, before method, and then it ran the test case 1. And then it ran after method because after method runs after each and every single test. Then it ran before method because before method runs before running a test annotation, this guy right there. So it did run that. And after that, you have test number 2 run. After the test number 2 is finished, it ran the after method again. Okay, because that's the after method basically, right? It works. It runs after each test method. And then we have after class, after test, and after suite, because these guys ran before. These are like more on the bigger picture, right? After class, we're considering the whole thing as a class. After test is basically the whole thing. And then suite is not only the whole thing, but it's also multiple classes. So if you have other classes where you have more tests you want to run, it will still work, right? This two is related to the class. And actually this one is just related to the class, and this one is related to the test itself, the testing type. And this one is the suite, meaning multiple test cases from multiple locations. It doesn't have to be the same location. Okay, so any question with annotation? Everybody gets it?
So the example you showed us, the one you created, can we
Mhm.
see that again, please?
Sure. Just my, okay, there we go, right here.
Okay, so this gonna run first the before and then the test, and then the after?
Okay, so you have the before test, right? So what if I change to before method, okay? And then what if I change this to after method, right? So after method. I don't want to do after method because it's gonna fail, but let's do it. Because it's after method, that means it's gonna quit the driver at some point, so it's fine. Okay, so now tell me, somebody who wants to tell me the order in which is gonna run. Okay, which is gonna run and when. Well, which one will run first, second, third, and things like that. It's right here, all in front of you. Who wants to try? So we talked about method, right? If we consider this guy as a method, that means,
Yeah, method. That's a method.
yeah. So then we have two methods right here, right?
Okay.
So what's gonna happen is if you run it, let's run it and see it. But if you run it, what's gonna happen is it's gonna run once before this guy and once before this guy, the before method, right? After method will run once after this one and once after this one. So let's run
Okay.
it real quick.
So it doesn't matter how you put it, it's just gonna run after every method.
Exactly. It does exactly what it says. Like, see how it closed it and opened up again. Before we didn't see it's closing. Okay. So because we quit the driver before. So now it did it differently. If you look at the order in which the first test it ran, you see driver setup was the first one, running tests, setting up driver, and then driver setup done, right? I have this driver set up, okay. Right there, running the test. Okay, so I will, you know what, let's do a comment here so that we can see what's happening. So I'm gonna say ran after, right? Ran after method, right? For example, already did that and then ran before method. And then just to, and yeah, it's gonna be clear by now. So let's see, ran test tag, right? So, and then this is the second one. So tag 1 and ran test tag 2, for example, right? Okay. So if I run it now, we should be clearly be able to tell what is happening. That's fine. And question here is that why even such feature exist? Why do you guys see the benefit of this, or do you guys see like, oh, this is just crazy, I don't need to do that, I can just go ahead and write my code however I want? Is this going to be helpful or is it not going to be helpful when you write your test?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be very helpful because we need to, because maybe there is a situation where you have to test some test before testing other thing. Maybe that's so.
So let's
Probably
look
there
at
is
this
a,
one.
yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
probably there's a chance that one test passed, the other one doesn't. So at least it gives the opportunity for each test to run separately.
Not bad. Remember, we talked about organizing your test, keeping it nice and neat and clean, and maintainability has to do something to do with it, you know? So in this case, TestNG is allowing you to be a little bit more neat because you're following the convention from TestNG. TestNG is telling you this is my template and you have to use this. If you want to run something before, if you want to run something after, if you want to run something before suite, okay? So it's better, sometimes it's better to have some sort of rules in place. Here seems like there is no rule right here. You can do whatever you want with your code, right? It seems like nothing is organized. Nobody's telling you do it this way or that way. This is just a flat file. Compared to the TestNG is telling you, okay, if you want test, it has to be inside of test. If you want to run non-test related stuff, it has to be any other method other than test tag. There is like total 10 tags that TestNG provides, and you can use any other ones if you have, but for tests specifically, it should be this. So that way I can create a nice report at the end. That's what the TestNG is telling me, right? Okay. So now that we ran it, you see the first one ran before method because it runs before the test annotation. Then it's running test, which just, is okay, where this comes from. Okay, this probably comes from the method from here. I got to remove those two, but anyway. So then once the before method is running is done, then the next thing is we ran the tag number 1. Okay, these two comments came from the driver setup. Okay, so I got to remove this. But first it did this, second it did the tag 1, then it ran the after method. Once it's done, then it ran before method again because it wants to run the second test. Then it ran the tag number 2, and then it ran the after method. Okay.
So you're saying this method is not good, or this method can be usable? Like, do you suggest using this method or not?
So if you have, let's say, an option between JUnit and this, obviously this will be a clear choice, right? If you have no other choice, like let's say you join a company and TestNG is their thing, then you will be using that. But if you have nothing, if you just wrote your test this way, right here, then TestNG is going to be an upgrade for you because TestNG does a lot better in terms of report. How are you going to get a report with this? There is no way to generate a report.
No, that's not my question. My question is like putting it all the way at the bottom for TestNG.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about these things, putting it in the bottom?
Yeah.
I've seen people put non-test related stuff at the bottom, but the reason I put it here is because to show you the difference, because you may think because I put it in the top is running top, right? So I did this purposely to make sure that you guys don't get confused what runs first and what runs second. But the best practices is that you put your test at the top, so you write to it. Basically, it's readable, it's easy to read. This is my test, this is my test. Anything non-related test, you put it at the bottom. And this is true for the classes. If you write a class where you have created new method, you put your method all down the bottom and call them when you need them. So the best practice here is that putting it in the bottom of the class, but you are free to put it wherever you want. But you have to, so let's say you join a company and you see they're doing it at the bottom, then you say, okay, fine, this is what I was going to do anyway, so that's fine. And then if you join a company and you see they're putting it at the top, and you can suggest, you can say, hey, it doesn't make sense. These are not really test related. We should put non-test related things in the bottom. It'll be easier and cleaner look. It doesn't do anything in terms of functionality, right? It works and it runs the test, it does everything, right? It's just that the looks, right? The convention. So let's say you have in your company 20 classes of TestNG, and all of them have their methods and before and after and all the other non-test related tag in the bottom. And you just join, what will you do? You know, you want to follow the same exact norm, go with the flow is gonna be my recommendation at that point. But if they have all them in the top, then go with the flow also, right? It's really, really on the team, but you can definitely say, okay, I don't like it this way. Maybe we should think about changing. Now you have, if you have 200 classes, that means you have to go and change in 200 classes. Do you want that extra work for yourself, you know? So you have to make sure that you have, before you recommend something, is it something that you're willing to do? Because they might just tell you like, oh, that's a great idea. That's really great. Why don't you do it? Okay,
Okay,
so just think about it.
go with the flow. Okay, got it.
Yeah, try to go with the flow in the beginning. All right, and then, all right, so then we pretty much like, okay, so in this annotation class right there, we have pretty much all of it, right? We got before method. When we run tests more than just one, then we can see how the suite works. The only thing that I'm not able to show you today is the suite. Suite is for multiple classes, okay? So for the suite, we need to set up another file that we can do another day. It's already 9:57. But when you run this test, you're gonna see in order in which it runs. So the next homework for you guys will be create a TestNG class and take all of your tests from here and rewrite them in TestNG class in a way that it basically separates anything that is non-test related. Anything common should be going into before method. Anything after the test that has common steps should be going into after the, where is the after method? Right there, after method, right? But you are free to use before test, after test, whatever makes sense to you. Play around with those, the tag, and then I will give you guys 2 minutes each for the next class, each of you guys, to showcase what have you done. If you've done something different and something more than what I'm asking, that's even better. You will have that 2 minutes to show us what have you done. So that'll be your homework. And the next class, we're gonna upgrade this framework into a next generation, let's say, right? It will be much better, and we're not going to go back to the older framework. So far you learned JUnit, Selenium, right? That was just plain. And then you learned TestNG, JUnit, and Selenium and Maven, right? Now that's already 2 framework. We learned how to do page object, okay? But we're going to go in depth, so don't worry. Just one simple page object showing is not enough, I know that, but we're going to go in more depth. And the next class, we're going to build another framework from scratch, and we may just convert this. We can actually convert this into that framework, right? To kind of show you how we are able to add more items to our pom.xml and just make it dramatic changes, right? So I might just do that. If not, then I'll just create a brand new framework. And once I do that, then I will have GitHub set up for all of you guys. You'll get access to GitHub. And then after that day, you're going to be pushing and pulling code in GitHub. And you will also get a partner assigned. So if you don't know how to push, somebody who does, they will help you to push your code. And moving forward, we will only accept homework in GitHub, right? In terms of code. So if you write code, it should be coming in GitHub and no exception, because that's how exactly at work you'll be pushing your code. Any questions? So let's give ourselves another 10-15 minutes for questions, and then I'll see you at the next class.
So the homework you want in video recording or?
Yes, so ideal again, if you did it, obviously you'll have that 2 minutes in the beginning of the class, the next class. So you can show me if in case you don't have the video, but if you do have the video, just videotape it and post it in the group. So what I will do on the day of the class, I will just not ask you to share. I'll just go to your video, run it, and then give you exactly if there's any mistakes, if there's anything that you did wrong, I'll tell you. But otherwise, we'll go right to the questions and it'll be easier that way. And again, the video one, it's something that you need to learn anyway, how to take a screen video, because if you find a bug, it'll be easier for you to just give them a screen video. This is what I'm experiencing. And instead of like having the guy call you, set up a meeting, sit down in a meeting, and then you are not able to explain because you nervous or whatever it is, right? So yeah, so video is important for the bugs. Any other question? All right. So if this is helping you guys, right, like the way that we're doing, again, I know what I'm trying to, achieve from these classes. I'm not trying to achieve you guys to make you into a totally pro right away. This is just to introduce you to TestNG at this point. But when you do the homework, you can expand that memory a little bit more, number one. Number two is that when we move away from TestNG and we do Cucumber and we are basically using different methods, it'll be very similar. So you don't have to be, you don't feel like something new coming to you and you have to focus. But we're gonna write more and more and more tests with Cucumber framework than TestNG, because rarely any company wants people to come and write automation using TestNG nowadays, especially with coming up, I guess, with new frameworks that is coming up, right? There are a few new tools that came out, but Selenium and Cucumber are still hot, right? It's still a tool that everybody wants to use, but maybe at the end I'm going to show you guys something new that came up, right? It is, if you know Selenium, then you should be able to also use that, right? So it's not like all of your work in Selenium is going to go to waste if you get a job in any of the newer tools that are out there, because it'll be the same. It'll be the same concept. If not, it's going to be easier, if anything. So I'll show you guys at the end, but for now, Selenium is important because, again, if you want to show history of 5 or 6 years of work, how did you even become a QA engineer and you never heard of Selenium, right? How did you even become a QA engineer? You never even used Java with Selenium or TestNG or JUnit, right? These are the initial tools, but if you don't even feel, let's say, if you don't even feel really comfortable talking about TestNG, you can just simply tell them I used TestNG 3 years ago. And right now I'm using Selenium and Cucumber because that's the framework that my team currently uses, right? So you will have this kind of discussion toward the end of the classes. Once we finish all of the subject, we're going to have interview prep, and we're going to talk about all of these. How we're going to answer a recruiter versus how we're going to answer a hiring manager. We're going to develop our personal script along with the resume, so that way you can feel more comfortable when you are out there looking for a job. All right, guys. So don't want to take more of your times. If you don't have any question, I'll see you on Saturday, and just don't forget the homework.
Thank you. Good night.
You're welcome. Good night, guys.